The story of mirrors begins in the hazy reflections of still water and polished stone, where early humans glimpsed fragmented, unstable images of themselves. Ancient civilizations like the Egyptians and Chinese crafted the first handheld mirrors from bronze and obsidian around 2900 BC and 2000 BCE respectively, though these reflected only about 20% of light, offering dim, distorted glimpses primarily reserved for royalty and the elite. For millennia, most people experienced their own likeness only fleetingly, in rippling ponds, oiled surfaces, or the occasional piece of polished metal, making true self-knowledge through appearance nearly impossible. Identity remained firmly rooted in community roles rather than individual visage, as medieval punishments like banishment proved devastating by severing those social ties. The Venetian glassmakers of the 14th century revolutionized mirror technology with mercury amalgams on glass, creating clearer reflections, but at great cost. Guild secrets were guarded under threat of death, and mirrors became such precious commodities that one French countess famously traded a nasty piece of land for this beautiful mirror. These early glass mirrors, often convex and warped, adorned the homes of aristocrats not just as tools but as symbols of wealth and power, like the small circular mirror in Jan van Eyck's Arnolfini portrait that reflected the room's entire social world. The true turning point arrived in 1835 when German chemist Justus von Liebig invented the process of coating glass with silver nitrate, producing the first truly clear, accessible modern mirrors. This technological leap democratized self-reflection, allowing ordinary people to see themselves with unprecedented clarity. Suddenly, personal appearance became a daily preoccupation rather than an occasional curiosity. The psychological shift was profound. Mirrors acted as the master of painters for Renaissance artists like Da Vinci, enabling linear perspective and realistic portraiture by revealing how light and form truly interacted with the human body. They also birthed new forms of self-documentation, from first-person novels to personal diaries, as people began recording their lives with newfound individuality. Yet this visibility came with costs: obsessive self-scrutiny, body dysmorphia, and the commodification of appearance, where modern studies show attractive people receive higher salaries and lighter legal sentences. Where Narcissus fell in love with his watery reflection, contemporary humans often face a mirror with anxiety, measuring themselves against impossible standards amplified by social media. Beyond vanity, mirrors transformed spaces and societies. Louis XIV's Hall of Mirrors at Versailles, with its 357 meticulously placed panels, wasn't merely decorative, it was a political weapon. By multiplying candlelight and reflections of courtiers, it demonstrated technological mastery while creating an immersive environment where the Sun King's power felt omnipresent and divine. Meanwhile, sacred mirrors in Shinto shrines served as portals to commune with gods, and Japanese imperial regalia included bronze mirrors representing the sun goddess Amaterasu, turning reflection into a spiritual act. In daily life, mirrors redefined architecture, enabling lighter interiors and the illusion of expanded space, while also advancing science through telescopes and microscopes. Yet their most unsettling contribution emerged in psychology. The mirror test for self-recognition, pioneered in the 18th century, became a benchmark for consciousness. Scientists placed animals, infants, and even robots before mirrors to study self-awareness, revealing how reflection is intertwined with identity formation. Charles Darwin used it to challenge human exceptionalism, while modern neuroscience explores mirror neurons that blur the line between self and observed other. This research underscores mirrors as not just reflective surfaces but cognitive tools that shape our understanding of interiority. Philosophically, mirrors forced a reckoning with the looking-glass self, the idea that identity forms through social reflection. Psychologist Wolfgang Prinz argues that mirrors, whether literal or metaphorical, like empathetic others, allow us to see ourselves from the outside, creating subjectivity through a dialectic of attribution and appropriation. Before mirrors, medieval identity was relational, where we lived, who our family was. Afterward, it became increasingly internalized and self-constructed. This shift paralleled broader cultural transformations, such as Jean-Jacques Rousseau's revolutionary theories of childhood as a distinct developmental phase. In Emile, 1762, He argued children weren't miniature adults, but beings requiring protected, stage-specific nurturing, a concept that eventually reshaped education and labor laws, extending childhood dependency into modern adolescence. Yet Rousseau's contemporary Louise d'Épinay critiqued his gender biases, noting that his ideal woman Sophie was educated for passivity, while Mary Wollstonecraft later lambasted this vision, demanding women's education for self-governance. Thus, mirrors, both real and social, became arenas for power struggles over who gets to define the self. Today, mirrors are ubiquitous, embedded in smartphones, surveillance systems, and selfie culture, yet their legacy remains paradoxical. They grant self-knowledge but breed narcissism, they democratize reflection yet amplify consumerist beauty standards. Artists like Anish Kapoor exploit this tension, using mirrored sculptures like Cloud Gate to warp and multiply reflections, challenging viewers to reconsider their place in space and society. Meanwhile, psychologists warn that constant self-monitoring through digital mirrors erodes the very sense of self these tools once helped construct. As we move toward augmented reality interfaces that overlay digital identities onto physical reflections, the mirror's evolution continues to shape what it means to be human. From the sacred bronze discs of ancient emperors to the AI-driven avatars of the metaverse, the quest to see ourselves clearly remains, as St. Paul foresaw, a matter of perceiving, through a glass, darkly, forever balancing revelation with distortion in the search for identity. The journey from murky obsidian to the silvered glass we know today was paved with both ingenuity and peril. Long before Liebig's breakthrough, artisans in China's Han Dynasty, 206 BCE 220 CE, crafted light penetration mirrors, bronze discs so meticulously polished that when sunlight hit their surface, patterns cast onto walls seemed to magically glow from within. These mirrors, often inscribed with Taoist symbols, were thought to ward off evil spirits, blending science with sacred ritual. Yet for all their sophistication, they reflected only hazy silhouettes, a far cry from true self-recognition. Meanwhile, Venetian mirror makers on the island of Murano labored in near-mythical secrecy. By backing glass with toxic mercury tin amalgam, they achieved reflections of startling clarity, but at a ghastly cost. Artisans inhaled mercury vapors for years, their trembling hands and eroded minds a hidden tax on luxury. The French state even sent spies disguised as glassworkers to steal these techniques, sparking a 17th-century Cold War over reflection. When Jean-Baptiste Colbert finally lured Venetian craftsmen to Paris in 1667, he housed them under armed guard, producing mirrors not just as objects, but as instruments of royal propaganda. Louis XIV's Hall of Mirrors at Versailles wasn't merely opulent, it was psychological theater. By multiplying candlelight and the images of courtiers through 357 panels, it created an immersive illusion of infinite power. Visitors stumbled through it, dizzied by their own recurring reflections, a literal embodiment of the Sun King's omnipresence. This architectural alchemy transformed palaces across Europe, turning dark stone halls into luminous spaces that declared, "We command light itself." Yet mirrors also lived in the shadows of superstition. In medieval Europe, they were soul catchers, objects that could trap spirits or reveal witches. Folk tales warned that breaking one invited 7 years of misfortune, a belief rooted in Roman divination practices where cracked surfaces portended fractured fates. Even as science advanced, mirrors unnerved. When 18th-century opticians created the first true flat glass mirrors, people recoiled at their own pores and imperfections. No longer softened by convex distortion, faces appeared with brutal honesty. This birthed a new anxiety, the terror of accurate self-scrutiny. Philosophers like Denis Diderot wrote of mirrors inducing existential dread, who is this stranger staring back? While portrait painters grumbled that clients now demanded mirror-like precision, forgetting art's role in idealization. The looking glass became a metaphor for truth's double-edged sword, enlightenment paired with disillusionment. This tension exploded in literature. Oscar Wilde's Dorian Gray famously traded his soul for eternal youth, his portrait absorbing age and sin while he remained flawless, a grotesque inversion of the mirror's promise. "I am jealous of everything whose beauty does not die," Dorian whispers to his reflection, capturing humanity's ancient hunger to freeze the self in time. In the East, mirrors carried divine weight. Japan's sacred Yada no Kagami, one of the 3 imperial regalia, enshrined the sun goddess Amaterasu. According to myth, when Amaterasu hid in a cave, plunging the world into darkness, deities lured her out using a bronze mirror, its reflection symbolizing her own radiant return. To this day, Shinto shrines house mirrors as shintai, vessels for kami spirits, never meant to reflect humans. Yet during Japan's Edo period, 1603 to 1868, mirrors underwent a democratic revolution. Dutch traders imported flat glass mirrors, which local artisans framed in lacquered wood, making them affordable to merchants and geishas. Suddenly, self-adornment wasn't just for nobles. Women studied their profiles to perfect elaborate coiffures, while kabuki actors used backstage mirrors to morph into characters, fueling a culture where identity became performative. This duality, mirror as sacred object and vanity tool, echoed in Aztec Tezcatl divination mirrors. Crafted from obsidian, these volcanic glass discs reflected not faces but star patterns, used by priests to commune with Tezcatlipoca, the smoking mirror god of destiny. Gazing into one, a priest didn't see himself, he saw the cosmos. The Industrial Revolution mass-produced mirrors but also exposed their illusions. Early 20th century psychologists like Jacques Lacan proposed the mirror stage of child development, the moment infants recognize their reflection, around 6 to 18 months, as a primal step toward constructing the I. This theory suggested selfhood was born not from within, but from an external image. Yet mirrors also deceived. Funhouses warped bodies into grotesques, while military camouflage used mirrored panels to vanish tanks. In 1915, German sniper shields had flip-up mirrors for peering over trenches, tools of survival that twisted observation into voyeurism. Later, two-way mirrors in interrogation rooms became instruments of power. The watched could not see the watcher. This duality reached its zenith with modern technology. Today, smartphones place pocket mirrors in billions of hands, but with a critical shift, they don't just reflect, they record, filter, and share. Apps like Snapchat offer digital mirrors that smooth skin, enlarge eyes, or crown users with cartoon halos. The result? A generation grappling with selfie dysmorphia, seeking surgery to resemble their filtered avatars. Meanwhile, AI deepfakes create hall of mirrors politics, where reflected truth is algorithmically manufactured. Artists have long weaponized mirrors to shatter complacency. In 1993, sculptor Josiah McElhenney crafted an historical anecdote about fashion, a chrome-plated chandelier reflecting disco balls, to critique Baroque decadence. Anish Kapoor's Cloud Gate, 2006. In Chicago, warp skylines and spectators into liquid mercury dreams, inviting communal selfie rituals that ironically echo ancient shrine practices. More hauntingly, Ai Weiwei's Safe Passage, 2016, lined a German gallery with 3,500 refugee life vests and mirrored ceilings, forcing viewers to stand amid the crisis while seeing themselves within it, a visceral reminder that empathy requires seeing oneself in the other. As we enter an age of augmented reality glasses and neural implants, the mirror's evolution continues. Microsoft's HoloLens projects holograms onto real-world reflections, while smart mirrors in bathrooms analyze skin health or superimpose makeup. Yet these advances resurrect ancient questions: who controls the reflection? What truths do mirrors conceal or amplify? When we gaze into a digital looking glass, are we seeing ourselves, or an algorithmic construct? The history of mirrors is, ultimately, the history of human identity, a quest to capture the elusive self, from water's ripple to the quantum screen. As Jorge Luis Borges wrote, mirrors and copulation are abominable, for they multiply the numbers of men. In multiplying our images, mirrors forced us to confront how many selves we contain, and which one is real. The true revolution of mirrors lay not in vanity, but in their power to bend light toward truth. When Galileo pointed his occhiale toward Jupiter in 1610, the bronze mirror at its base was crude by modern standards, barely 30% reflective, yet it shattered cosmic dogma. Those foggy lenses revealed moons orbiting another world, proving Earth wasn't the universe's pivot. But it was Isaac Newton who grasped that mirrors, not lenses, held astronomy's future. His 1668 reflecting telescope used a polished metal speculum mirror to fold light without chromatic aberration, letting starlight speak undistorted. For centuries after, astronomers battled mirror-making's physical limits. Early speculum metal tarnished in months, glass mirrors sagged under their weight, warping star clusters into smears. Then in 1856, Léon Foucault's vaporized silver coating changed everything. Using electroplating techniques adapted from Liebig, he created the first astronomically viable glass mirrors, including the 80 cm behemoth for Marseille Observatory that mapped Martian canals, later debunked, but electrifying the public. Foucault didn't stop there. In a Paris basement, he mounted a mirror on a spinning wheel, reflecting light to a stationary surface. By measuring the displacement, he calculated light speed within 0.6% of its true value. A triumph of mirrors measuring their own master. The 20th century turned mirrors into engines of discovery. In 1917, Albert Einstein theorized stimulated emission, light amplifying itself by triggering atoms, but it took Theodore Maimann's 1960 ruby laser to prove it. At its heart? Two mirrors facing each other, one semi-silvered. Photons bouncing between them synchronized into a coherent beam, birthing a tool that now reads grocery barcodes, corrects vision, and welds microchips. Meanwhile, the Hale telescope's 5-meter Pyrex mirror, 1949, poured in a spinning oven to achieve parabolic perfection, exposed galaxies billions of light-years away. Its successors, like the Keck Observatory's segmented mirrors with nanometer precision, use actuators to counteract atmospheric turbulence, effectively unblinking the eye to the cosmos. But mirrors also turned inward. Confocal microscopy, developed in the 1950s, used vibrating mirrors to scan tissue layers with pinpoint focus, revealing living cells in 3D for the first time. Suddenly, mitochondria weren't abstract blobs, they danced in real time. Quantum mirrors unveiled even stranger realities. In 1987, physicists created dielectric mirrors with 99.999% reflectivity, stacks of silica thinner than spider silk that trapped light like flies in amber. These enabled cavity ring-down spectroscopy, detecting trace gases by how long light pulses lived between mirrors. But the ultimate defiance came with negative index metamaterials. In 2000, John Pendry proposed mirrors that reversed light's path not by reflection, but by bending space itself. By 2006, Duke University built a microwave frequency invisibility cloak using copper mirrors etched into fractal patterns, steering radiation around an object like water parting around stone. Though still primitive, it proved H.G. Wells' dream, mirrors that erase. Medicine harnessed mirrors to heal bodies and minds. Mirror therapy, pioneered by V.S. Ramachandran in the 1990s, tricks phantom limb pain. Amputees place their intact limb before a mirror, its reflection superimposed where the missing limb should be. When they move both, the brain rewires, silencing agonizing spasms by reconciling sight with memory. For stroke patients, mirror boxes rebuild neural pathways, teaching paralyzed hands to move again by watching their reflection. Even endoscopes, those slender snakes exploring our insides, rely on micromirrors steering light around intestinal bends. The newest frontier? Smart mirrors using multispectral imaging to diagnose melanoma by analyzing reflected light wavelengths deeper than the eye sees, a silent guardian catching what sunlight once hid. Yet mirrors' greatest revelation might be cosmic humility. When the LIGO Observatory detected gravitational waves in 2015, it used mirrors suspended 4 kilometers apart by glass threads finer than hair. As spacetime ripples from colliding black holes passed through, they shifted those mirrors by 1/1000th of a proton's width, a fluctuation caught by lasers bouncing between them. In that near imperceptible shudder, mirrors confirmed Einstein's last unproven theory and opened an era of listening to the universe's hidden collisions. From Galileo's smudged bronze to LIGO's quantum stillness, mirrors remain our silent partners in the dark, turning reflection into revelation. They remind us that every surface, whether polished obsidian or orbital telescope, holds two stories: the light it captures, and the curious mind it illuminates.